I would encourage the same because I mean, I still want you to be in like some structured learning environment. Exactly. You're not just going to have a year on the couch, no. Not under my roof, and I'm paying the rent.
Correct.
But I don't want to pay your tuition either, you know.
Yeah, and there's nothing against the child. It's mostly against the school.
Like, 100%. These universities are out of pocket. Hello, family, and welcome back. I'm here with my husband, as always, LeVar Harris.
And my beautiful wife, Rhian Swafford Harris.
We're here to start the conversations in and around topics of finance that we feel we should all be having, with the hopes that you will find the language you need here to continue the conversations in your own homes.
So, let's talk money. So I have a topic for us this week. So I want to talk about, I had a good conversation with my friends recently about whether a 4-year degree is actually worth it in today's era.
Yeah. So what did you guys discuss?
So pretty much we talked about how, again, now because things are all virtual, there's a lot of pros and cons to actually going to school. Also because wages haven't really increased at the same price that education has increased. There's been a lot of like pushback in saying whether a 4-year degree is actually worth it, because I'm pretty sure you can attest as well. We have a lot of friends that are swimming in student loan debt and not feel like they're using their degree. So just kind of figuring out when does it make sense to do so.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like a very good point about how wages haven't gone up to correspond with like the value of a degree. Back in the day, I know, for instance, like a lot of our family, like parents, my grandparents, they didn't have 4-year degrees, right? But they were able to work their way up from, you know, entry-level positions to management, to supervisor roles, and to be able to sustain a family that way. Whereas now, even in these lower wage industries, if we're talking fast food, retail, auto industry, you have to come in with a 4-year degree to get into a management position, and the wages don't correspond with what you paid for that degree. So in that sense, I feel like it's a complete ripoff that those jobs are now requiring more of people for the same wages. You shouldn't need a 4-year degree to be a retail manager. There's nothing that college necessarily prepares you for that level of, I guess, customer service and managing a team. Like, that's all something you can definitely learn on the job. You shouldn't have to take out 6 figures of debt for that. So that's kind of how I feel. I could definitely see why people would say it's not worth it.
So I think we should dive into like, what are the pros? Like, so why would someone go to school?
Well, I think that, you know, college is a really big social experiment. 100%. We hear that a lot. 100%. There is a lot of socialization that happens there, but I also feel like you cannot, again, spend 6 figures on a degree to be socialized, right? There's other ways to be socialized. But I do feel that if you approach your 4-year degree really strategically, you kind of look at your end game, like, what do you want to do with this degree? Why do you need it? If you need to attain your 4-year degree with 4 years at a particular university, right? Because you could also graduate high school, go to a JC for 2 years, transfer over those credits to then a 4-year university, but only have 2 years left to go. Or if you stacked your credits at your JC, and even some seniors in high school allow you to take credits, then you could get a 4-year degree at the end of the day, but only have paid 2 years in tuition.
I think another huge pro that really ties into socialization as well is the networking aspect of college.
Yeah.
It's kind of second to none. You are thrown into this new environment and you kind of learn new things and new skills together. And so you automatically create a bond with a lot of people. So both my wife and I, most of our friends come from college. Obviously, we met each other in college, and we were able to build that bond as well. But also while you're in college, of course, depending on the kind of groups you're a part of, fraternities, that continues to expand people that you know, and can definitely help you in the long run, especially in the corporate environment, because it's all about who you know, unfortunately, in the real world.
Yeah. So. Lastly, I will say that even though you can attain grit and organization and just like hustle and independent survival, all those things outside of college. I do think with that same theme of it being a social experiment, you're able to learn and foster these traits in a controlled and safe environment. And I think that makes a huge difference in the risk you're willing to take, and that kind of drives your development, right? Because you just, it's so crazy. Like literally you graduate from high school and then 2 months later you're considered an adult and you're living on your own and you're responsible for your own eating schedules, getting to class on time, doing your homework, when literally 2 months prior you were called a child and you were depending on your parents to feed you every day. So it's a very crazy transition, but again, it's in a controlled environment where everyone else around you is trying to figure it out too, and you're able to lean on your friends, during this development process. But I do think it teaches a lot of like grit and figuring things out on your own. And yeah, you kind of have to have a certain set of survival skills, especially around finals times. And
kind of reminds me of those situations where, or the imagery where a bird is kind of pushing their young to get out the nest and then fly.
Yeah.
Essentially it, like you're waiting on me hand and foot and now it's time to be an adult.
And it's a really aggressive push, the timing of it.
You can just fall straight to the ground and come back home.
Yeah, and some people do.
Yeah.
So I will say that is another benefit.
For sure.
All right, so with all that being said, right now we are in this quarantine time throughout the entire world, right? And so these benefits of socialization and grit and networking that we've discussed, can you truly attain that in this virtual learning environment that these universities are asking students to pay full tuition for, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were coming of age now and making the decision to, accept or defer your undergrad acceptance, what would you do?
That's a good question. And obviously it's hard to answer that in the position that I am now, because I know I feel a little different when I was graduating from college, or graduating from high school and was looking forward to getting to college.
Yeah.
But speaking from the position that I am now, knowing the financial impact, I would say that I would defer, or take some classes online, maybe go to a junior college. But just knowing myself in high school, I'm pretty sure I still would have wanted to be like, well, I'm still in college, so let me do this first year, even if it's at the full expense of the normal tuition, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, I was young and didn't really understand like the full benefit of how the financial implications of the decisions that I'm making back then are going to affect me today. So I think that's how I would take things.
Yeah. But I do think that knowing who your parents are, and because, they had the college experience, I don't think they would have allowed you to do the virtual learning, because I think maybe you could have deferred a year or, gone to JC and then continued, just because you'd have had guidance at least to make an educated decision. Whereas for myself, I want to say that, I would have been motivated to just get it done because I was first generation. So I didn't have anyone to have that guidance. But I also went to undergrad on a track scholarship. And right now you cannot compete in NCAA. So I'm not even sure what that would look like. I don't know if they would, have taken my scholarship just because there's no athletics program right now. And so I couldn't have even gone, or, I just don't know how it would work.
I think that's key though, because you're saying I would have guidance, but no one has been in this situation before. So they would be like, well, we had a college experience, but we don't know what this new experience may be.
Yeah,
so
or how long it's going to last. We say it's just a year, but what if it's not?
And deferring a child's school, like you're essentially saying, I'm going to put things off for a year. And no parent ever wants to put their kid behind, especially if a lot of their friends and people that they know are also going to take those classes online. So it would be a tough decision.
Yeah, it would. What would you guide your kid?
To be completely honest, if we can omit the factor of cost.
No, we can't. No. This is a real hypothetical, not a fake one.
Then I would probably strongly encourage them to take classes online at a community college.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Not full tuition. I just can't justify that.
Yeah.
But definitely taking classes online.
Yeah, I would encourage the same, because I mean, I still want you to be in like some structured learning environment. You're not
Exactly.
just going to have a
Chill on
year on the
yeah,
couch,
no.
not under my roof, and I'm paying the rent.
Correct.
But I don't want to pay your tuition either,
Yeah, there's nothing against the child. It's more so against the school. Like
Oh,
it should
100%.
be
These
fractional.
universities are out of pocket.
So, and I think if enough people start doing that, then we will see some kind of change
Yeah.
or bankruptcies.
Yeah. Or even higher tuition,
Yeah,
after the
unfortunately.
fact. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I think it's important for us to talk about the alternatives to getting a 4-year degree, especially right now. There's a strong push within the entire corporate environment due to the
Hmm.
racial tension is trying to get more diversity into the companies.
Hmm.
So by getting more diversity, it's not just kind of race or gender, but also kind of diversity of thought, diversity of background, all things encompassed in that diversity initiative. And trade schools specifically in my profession is something that a lot of companies are looking to really hire from.
Hmm.
So trade schools, boot camps, and just kind of more so on hands-on learning as opposed to kind of learning it behind the books.
And what's your industry for
So
people who don't know?
yeah, I work at Twitter. I work at tech, software engineers, data scientists, or so kind of technical jobs. The
Hmm.
things you can learn again at a tech school or again a boot camp that can
Hmm.
kind of teach you that skill sets. May not give you like the statistical foundation in terms of kind of learning it in your coursework, but it will give you hands-on experience where you can still do the job and put things into production, which is the most important aspect of an engineer.
Yeah, and I think that's really key because we always hear about trade schools, whether it's like plumbing or carpentry, and it's looked at in a negative way,
It is.
and it shouldn't be. But I think that with this new push for diversity, and like you said, diversity of thought, and expanding the candidate pool by looking at different industries instead of the traditional 4-year degree from some Ivy League, that doesn't necessarily prepare you to be the best engineer in practice, right? They're looking at people who had, diverse backgrounds and how they attained their degree, which would include the trade schools, right, and the boot camps. And
Yeah.
I think that the more that is normalized, it will take away that stigma from high school students feeling like they can't go the JC trade school route and knowing that it'll pay off in the end. And I think tech kind of sets the bar and
Yes.
literally
Leads
leads
the way.
the way in everything. So this is really encouraging to hear. And again, it's not just kind of a random thing to say like, oh, go to trade school, go to the army. Like, no, this is something that'll give you like a real foundation in the end. You could really support your family.
Awesome.
And I think with that, also some non-traditional industries or less popular. Like you go to college to be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, right? Especially if you're from first generation or an immigrant family, like those are your only options.
Yeah.
But again, if we're talking about different industries, even like the recruiting industry for these, tech industries who are hiring by the thousands, right? Like who is doing that hiring? And that's like a really stable a consistent job that pays you enough to live in these major cities where the recruiting is happening. So just also thinking about some non-traditional career paths to choose and that will allow you to do so with like a 4-year degree because like we said earlier it seems like the value of that degree has gone down, right? And you now need a secondary degree to get into like any industry, and that's not really true. That's just what is put out there.
Yeah, and I'm also noticing a lot of hiring because I work in recruiting, so I work with a lot of hiring managers, and they're noticing that yes, if you hire from the Berkeleys, the Stanfords, UCLA's, you are able to get very strong engineers, but they all have a pretty similar way of thinking and kind of how they
Mhm.
approach problems. So
Mhm.
when you hire someone from tech or from a boot camp, they have a completely different experience and are
Yeah.
able to kind of bring that again diversity of thought to the entire equation and whatever
Mhm.
problem they're trying to solve. So
Yeah.
that's a key thing that I feel like a lot of companies are now, at least in tech, are starting to realize.
Yeah.
There's no silver bullet. There's so many different ways to kind of tackle a problem and be a better
Mhm.
representation of the audience that's on your platform. So definitely, by all means, if you can entertain the idea of going to a trade school or some kind of boot camp. And
Mhm.
actually, one of our top engineers gave a talk recently, and he spoke about saying he doesn't have a 4-year degree. He went to a trade school, and he thinks that kind of creativity is what helped him get to the current status that he's at.
Yeah. And that's really key. Like if you literally keep hiring the same type of person over and over to approach and tackle the problems you have, you're not going to get new innovation or
Correct.
new thought. It's literally insanity. And that's what these, corporations have been doing for years and years. And you just recycle the same for example, 10 engineers who go through Google to Amazon to Twitter to the Yelps, like to Apple, and it's just like the same people. And so, yeah, I think that's a really beautiful thing that the industries are starting to recognize.
So, looking, if you had kids
Mm-hmm.
and your son or daughter said that they wanted to go to a trade school, how would you feel?
Now knowing and seeing the security, right, like from your firsthand
But
perspective.
it's not all guaranteed by any
No,
means.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, it's going in that way,
Correct.
right? So, like, we don't have kids right now, but if we do 18 years from now, when they have to make this decision,
Yeah.
we would know for sure, like, what was the trajectory, and like, has this panned out in a meaningful way, and not just within like our anecdotal experiences with our like friends, right, who
Yeah.
we have seen do this. So, I think I'd be able to make a more educated decision. I think if my kid right now was 18, I would know their personality, like, did they have the wherewithal, in my opinion, to be diligent enough to do this 4-year degree online virtually, right? Like, would they still get something from it? Did they want to go to a traditional field? Like, if they wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer, for example, like their mom, then I could see, the push again to go the 4-year degree route and then get your secondary degree, just because it's such a it's like a step-by-step equation. Like, these are things you have to do. There's no really other way to do it. But again, if they were more hands-on and they seem like they would flourish in more of a trade environment, then yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I feel like as long as they actually would kind of be happy about that, 'cause I feel like it shows that they know what they want.
Yeah.
They're very passionate about a specific field, as
Hmm.
opposed to someone who's going to college, be like, I'm gonna figure it out.
No.
It's a gamble.
Yeah, I wouldn't want that. I think the key is for raising the next generation. If you are a parent, or if you want to pivot, it's not too late. It's just to know all of your options and to
Correct.
present your kid with all of your options. And again, if you're already an adult and you want to pivot, research and educate yourself on all of your options. I think that's what is really key.
Yeah, and I actually had a friend went to our college.
Hmm.
Wasn't really happy with his career after he graduated. Wasn't really able to apply the degree that he got.
Hmm.
But made a career pivot. Went to a boot camp, and I think he paid like maybe a fraction of what he paid for the
Hmm.
college undergrad degree that he got. And now he's working as an engineer at a tech company. So definitely never too late. There's a lot of resources out there nowadays. You just kind of have to be more intentional about seeking them out.
Yeah, yeah. And to be clear, like, we're not anti 4-year, degrees. Like,
We both have 4-year degrees.
yeah, we definitely take the traditional path. We
Very
have a
traditional.
4-year undergrad degree from our university, and then we both have postgraduate degrees as well. But we were strategic in how we went about it, and we made sure that we needed those particular degrees, right, in the order that we got them. So I forever knew that I wanted to be an attorney. So, like, I had to get a 4-year degree. I had to do 3 years of law school. There just was not another way around it. And my husband, he he got his 4-year degree, obviously, and he waited to get his MBA. He didn't go right away. And I mean, I guess you can tell your own story, but go ahead.
So I got my 4-year degree, worked in like the financial industry, and then did a career pivot to tech, and then always had the passion to get my MBA, but I also understood like the cost implications of getting an MBA, and I didn't feel like it was financially wise for me to take time off to go to a full-time MBA program. So I'm talking over with my wife, and we realized that there's a lot of great programs out there online and remote that you're able to take advantage of. Yes, you may miss out on the socialization aspect physically at that time, but of course, as long as you're more intentional about seeking out different kind of like networking groups and etc., you're able to kind of get that same experience. So,
yeah.
long story
And you
short,
had your networking from your undergrad too,
correct.
So you got some of that benefit.
For sure. But usually when you get a postgraduate degree, you're trying to expand on that network.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, so long story short, I ended up going to University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, which is a very well-known college that has a great MBA program, and had an amazing experience. I really highly recommend it to all of my friends. Actually have a few that are applying, and just graduated a couple months ago. So that was super exciting.
And a fraction of the cost is the key point
huge
here.
Fraction of the cost. Specifically because one is outside of California, which already lowered the price drastically. But again, since it's online, I'm able to have that same experience as if I lived in Illinois area.
Yeah.
So it was
and that's also why we feel so strongly about these universities charging full tuitions for online programs.
Oh yeah.
When we have firsthand experience, we know that it should be a fraction of the cost because you're not getting that network and that socialization that you're otherwise paying for. So,
and I actually had a lot of friends that had kind of same undergrad degree as myself, looking for an MBA, that weren't as diligent about finding a cost-effective program. They kind of just said, "Let's get an MBA," and kind of went to traditional, I think, $80,000 or $100,000 course. But I really, really, really am adamant about like weighing the pros and cons. So obviously, if your company's paying for it, completely different conversation. But if it's on your own expense, you want to really see, will this actually benefit my career? How will it do so? And will I get my money back in return? Now, obviously, if you're passionate, saying I know I always want to go to this school, then if that's going to bring you happiness, then go for it. But if you're just looking for a specific degree to kind of check a box in terms of you having the MBA letters, or you having the network that you want, then be more intentional about the cost.
Yeah. So in closing, my takeaways were that, there are benefits to a 4-year degree, the socialization, the networking, that's nothing to discount. But it is key to be strategic, which I know is saying a lot to a 17-year-old, right? About what you're going to pursue. But again, if you are someone who's younger and you're watching this, seek out people who have, taken a similar path that you aspire to, and just figure out how to do it in the most cost-effective way. Seek out scholarships, right, and grants, and just do what you can to make it work for you. Don't feel that you can't do the JC route for the first couple years and then transfer. Like, just don't limit yourself and think that there's just one traditional way to do it. Again, if you're in a situation where you're an incoming freshman in this virtual learning environment, you could consider deferring your first year. And if you want to take a year off, honestly, I know we said that our hypothetical children wouldn't be on the couch, but it's a really stressful time in the world right now. So if that's what you need to do, that's perfectly acceptable too. Like, let me be clear. Yeah. And again, like, if you need to pivot in life later, seek out trade schools, boot camps. Like, it's never too late to figure out the life that you want for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. So if you're still watching, you might as well like and subscribe. So let us know what you think in the comments. Is a 4-year degree worth it? We'd love to hear from you. We post every week. Until next time, fam.